Britain's salvation or total disaster? Today, mass deportations, a complete border reset, or a cruelty-fueled fantasy that will bankrupt us and break families? Alex, millions must go. Is this a cruel fantasy? Ready? Grab yourself a brew and let's go.
Cruel fantasy, absolutely. No doubt this will get heated, Jack.
Welcome to UK Pulse. It's March 11, 2026. I'm Jack Carter, north of the Pennines, and today we're tackling one of the hottest potatoes in British politics, mass deportations. Some say it's the only way to restore order. Others say it's immoral and unworkable. I don't do soft answers. I believe Britain needs a reset, and if that means deporting large numbers who broke the rules or don't contribute, so be it. Alex Thompson joins me, policy analyst at British Future. Steady, fact-driven, very left of centre. Alex, tell our listeners in your words, why do you think mass deportations are a bad idea?
Thanks, Jack. I'm Alex Thompson. Look, I get the anger, I really do. But mass deportations are inhumane, wildly expensive, and they won't solve the real problems. Underfunded public services, labour shortages, and the organised criminal networks exploiting vulnerable people. There are better, smarter, and fairer ways to restore control and fairness.
Right. Before we rip in, we need to agree terms. When people say mass deportations, what do they mean? Alex?
Give me a sec. People mean different things. Legally, you've got asylum seekers, overstayers, legal migrants, and foreign national offenders. Mass deportations often blurs those lines, and that's dangerous. We need clarity.
For clarity, I'll say what I mean. Large numbers. Think 150,000 a year, as Reform UK pitched, focused on illegal entrants, foreign criminals, and what I call non-contributors, people who aren't working, not paying taxes, and sucking services dry. New deportation agency, 5 flights a day targets, leave the ECHR if we have to. That's what people are imagining.
You've just packed a lot in. I'd push back on non-contributors as a label. It's vague and often used to describe long-term residents, families, people with mixed status. Also, facts matter. Net migration is up over 200,000 in recent figures. Okay, but it's down dramatically from the peaks after the pandemic and policy shifts. Saying only millions must go ignores that nuance.
Nuance? Sure. But people up north see overflowing GP lists, school waiting lists, council housing stretched to breaking. They're not hearing nuance, they're hearing chaos. We've got small boats and illegal crossings continuing despite the tough talk. The system's failing. That's the starting point for why mass action looks attractive.
But does mass deportation actually fix those problems? Or does it scapegoat migrants for decades of underinvestment? The pressure on the NHS, schools and housing is real, but the cause is complex. Austerity, planning failures and workforce shortages. Deport a few thousand and the queues don't miraculously vanish.
Listen, Alex. When people see the same neighbourhoods changing fast, when they lose access to a GP or a school place, they want action. Polling shows it. Across several surveys, roughly 71% say immigration is too high. 66% say entries are too high. Support for deporting illegal entrants and foreign criminals is very high, near 90% in places. 45% even support large numbers of recent migrants leaving. That's not a fringe, that's a mandate.
Even those polls need unpacking, Jack. People overwhelmingly support deporting criminals and preventing illegal crossings. When you ask about deporting long-term residents or people with children in UK schools, support drops. So yes, there's anger, but it's targeted. Most Brits want controlled migration, not blanket expulsion. Politicians can't just cherry-pick stats to justify sweeping measures.
So, what's your plan then? Sit on your hands while millions stream in? Tell that to someone who can't get a council house.
Not at all. But we need feasible policies. Mass deportations mean building huge detention capacity, hiring thousands of enforcement officers, chartering flights. The costs would run into billions every year. Look at the US ICE model. Abuses, political blowback, deaths in custody. That's a political and moral disaster. The economic damage matters too. Care homes, farms, hospitality, and the NHS rely on migrant labour. Pull the plug and those sectors collapse.
Alex, you mentioned costs, but what about the savings? If you remove people who aren't paying taxes and are using services, you free up housing, school places, medical appointments. Over the medium term, it pays for itself.
That assumes you can accurately identify non-contributors and remove them cleanly. In reality, you'll catch families, people with British-born children, and cases like Windrush where the state gets it wrong. The legal and diplomatic costs are huge. Returns agreements, refusal from countries to take people back, possible ECHR complications. And economically, migrants typically contribute more in taxes than they take out, especially working migrants.
Windrush, I'll grant you, that was a scandal, and it should not be repeated. But that was incompetence. This would be competence. A new deportation agency that actually delivers. If the ECHR ties our hands, we leave it. Sovereignty first.
Leaving the ECHR to avoid legal safeguards is reckless. Those conventions exist to prevent refoulement and to protect vulnerable people. Diplomatically, it isolates us, and practically, other countries may retaliate or refuse returns, making mass removals impossible.
Fine. Let's get practical again. Alex, I want you to outline the real cost and scale if someone tried this. Give listeners the numbers.
Sure, if you target 150,000 people a year, you need identification, legal processes, detention or supervised removal, and flights. Conservative estimates put operational costs in the low billions annually. That's before indirect economic hits. You'd also need an enforcement workforce the size of a medium police force and logistics for international returns. The US experience shows costs explode when legal challenges and human rights safeguards kick in.
Billions well spent if it restores order.
But at what price? If hospitality loses seasonal workers, if care homes can't staff shifts, if farms fail at harvest time, GDP shrinks and tax receipts fall. And then you have to spend more to prop up failing sectors. It's not just moral, it's arithmetic.
People say migrants are replacing British workers. I see towns where locals can't get affordable housing. You can't keep telling them that it's just a funding issue when their everyday life is affected.
I hear that, Jack. I'm not denying pressure exists, but the solution is targeted enforcement. Remove criminals, crack down on smuggling networks, speed up asylum decisions, invest in housing and health services, and create safe legal routes so fewer people take boats. That reduces pressure without the brutality of mass sweeps.
Targeted enforcement sounds fine until the bureaucracy fails. How many decades do you want people to wait for justice while the towns change? People want speed and scale.
They want fairness and results, not witch hunts. Speed can be delivered by streamlining decision-making, better resourcing the Home Office, not by rounding up families. And remember, the social cost of tearing families apart, of wrongful deportations, damages cohesion and trust more than orderly, lawful migration. Let's talk public opinion properly. You said there's a silent majority whispering millions must go. The evidence shows complexity. High support exists for stopping illegal crossings and removing criminals, but when questions specify legal residents, people balk. Regionally, yes, concerns are stronger in some northern towns, but national majorities prefer controlled, fair migration rather than blanket expulsions.
Politicians ignore the whispering. They're cowards. They pander to legal niceties while people suffer. Controlled hasn't worked fast enough. That's why radical action appeals.
Radical action that breaks legal obligations and wrecks our economy will create more problems than it solves. There's a middle path. Better enforcement against criminal gangs, international cooperation to prevent crossings, more humanitarian but regulated routes, and quick processing to cut backlogs.
All right, Alex, paint your Britain first then. Don't tell me about soft compassion. Tell me how your plan puts Britain first.
Putting Britain first means securing borders effectively while upholding the rule of law and our values. It means investing in faster asylum processing, expanding legal routes for labour shortages, enforcing employer sanctions to prevent illegal work, and building housing instead of deportation machinery. It's about economic strength and social cohesion, not spectacle.
My vision of Britain first is straightforward. Fewer illegals, tougher returns, more jobs and housing for British-born people, and a government that acts instead of lectures. I'll leave human rights critics to call it ugly. I call it necessary.
And I'd say that a Britain that rips families away and copies an ICE-style enforcement model loses its moral standing. We'd risk international isolation and damage sectors that rely on migrants. That's not strength. It's short-term posturing with long-term harm.
We'll see about long-term.
We will.
Rapid fire, quick questions. Alex, how many should we deport a year, if any?
Targeted removals of serious foreign national offenders, as many as necessary, proportionate to the crimes. Not a quota of hundreds of thousands.
How do you answer the bloke in Stoke who says his kid lost a school place because of new arrivals?
Invest in schools, plan for population change, and ensure local authorities get funding linked to real pressures. Blame misplaced on people isn't the fix.
Alex, your turn. How do you stop wrongful deportations?
Robust legal oversight, independent tribunals, dedicated legal aid, and transparent case reviews, and stop using detention as the default. Jack, what's your fallback when countries refuse to take people back?
Reciprocity, diplomacy, and, if required, sanctions. We don't take no for an answer.
That's the fantasy part. Sanctions escalate, costs rise, and returns fail.
Then we build capacity and refuse to be told to accept the status quo.
You can't bulldoze the world into cooperation.
Maybe.
Jack, one last point. Windrush showed the state can get this catastrophically wrong. That should be a national scar. Any program with that scale of people movement risks repeating it if safeguards aren't ironclad.
Windrush was a mess. I won't defend that. But I also won't let that horror be the reason nothing changes.
Fair enough. We agree. No one wants Windrush again.
Right. Time for closing shots. Alex?
Mass deportations are a fantasy of tough talk. They are inhumane, economically reckless, and legally dicey. We must control borders, yes, but through faster decisions, targeted enforcement, safer legal routes, and investment in services. That's how to be pragmatic and humane while putting Britain first.
I believe Britain needs a radical reset. Deport illegals, foreign criminals, and clear out those taking advantage. Create a new enforcement agency, set targets, and if we must, step away from legal handcuffs that stop returns. It's about fairness for taxpayers and restoring order. The silent majority wants action. Don't call it racist, call it common sense.
I call it dangerous. And I call on listeners, ask what you're willing to sacrifice: your economy, your reputation, or the rights of people who have built lives here. There are better ways.
Listeners, mass deportations, yes or no, and why? Tell us your stories, your figures, your rage, your doubts. We'll read the best ones on the next show. Smash the like, subscribe, hit the bell, and share if you want this argued loud and proper. Next week, we'll look at the ECHR row. Could leaving really speed up returns, or would it unleash a diplomatic nightmare? Don't miss it. Alex, thanks for coming down. Tough and fair.
Thanks, Jack. Always intense. Always intense.
Right, that's UK Pulse. Debate loud, think harder. See you next time.